So exactly what is Andy's brain?
Well, like any other brain, it had its course of development, but what's so unique about Andy is the stress environment that it was developing in. We know that the infant brain is exquisitely sensitive to stress and insecurity. And it gets a bit more robust by the time you're a teenager. And during the teen years, it goes through an explosive growth. And then by 15, it starts to prune down. By 25, it's finished growing. And at every developmental stage, stress can derail it, it can hijack it, and it can impair its functioning and the sense of self. So we know that Andy was very fortunate to have the mother he did. She lived with him until she died.
Right.
And I think, that was an ambivalent attachment for him. Like, what are you still doing here? And all that. But in fact, for her, Andy was her life. And I think she covets that little baby as such a treasured, almost angelic object that came back to her. And she never let go. That's a positive and negative for Andy. In the childhood, it was a treasure as it protected him. And as a teen, when he had all these issues about his frailty and the bullying that he went through, his brothers really bookended him. They looked out for him. And then by the time he's off to New York, he's his own guy. He's in his dream. He's chasing the moon when he comes to New York. So in the 50s, he goes from nobody to, a star in the commercial art world. He was rich, he bought a house. I mean, in 10 years.
I know.
Unheard of.
Right. So in the case of Andy, he was very much motivated as far as the executive side of his brain. He knew that to support the factory, to support films, to support books and all the different sides of his creativity, he knew he had to make money.
I think when you see that collaborative, convergent and divergent brain states working well, and his worked very well, he enjoyed both. He enjoyed his creativity, and his creativity was fed by the need to make money.
So he used his creativity in collaboration with his executive side to say, hey, I have got to figure this out. And he did that really well in a way that I've never seen other artists do.
Other artists don't have a 10-year superstar career as a commercial artist. Andy never stopped being a commercial artist, and he simply added fine artist, cultural influencer, evolutionary culture history influencer. He didn't stop. He went beyond with his creativity to influence culture. And he was the center of it in many ways. People identified, well, what's pop culture? Well, Andy Warhol, and then everything. It wasn't the Beatles. They were a byproduct of what Andy had already started.
So in the case of some of the other artists that you mentioned in the book, examples are?
There was an exhibition at the Warhol Museum with Marisol, and he and Marisol were apparently very good friends, and she influenced Andy, and Andy influenced her in what they made. But in one of the interviews, she says, I have to give myself 2 or 3 hours a day to daydream. I can't make art unless I literally go to work daydreaming and just let my mind wander. And I think Andy probably admired her, was inspired by her, and it was reciprocal. So it's one of those areas where you can look at their art, and when she made this and when he made that, there are parallels, and clearly they're kind of jamming off of each other.
Yeah. He never really stopped right into the very end. I mean, that's why almost any artist, he had tons and tons of work, whether it was photography, which I was very influential in making him do more of that, but his silkscreen, his modeling career, which I documented in my book that I did recently about, he was a model.
Yeah, and he was literally, at the time he passed, stepping into a computer generated imagery. He did a portrait of Debbie Harry on a computer.
I remember
and
that.
he was a spokesperson for one of these startup computer companies. So had he survived and lived on, he would be at the cutting edge of computer generated art. And in some ways, his spirit pushed things in that direction anyway.
Well, his spirit is all about multiples.
Yes.
And there can't be anything bigger
Right.
or, in the line of multiples than doing stuff on a computer.
Right.
Because once it's out there, everybody has it.
Yes.
You can't stop it. Like, take it down. Well, you can't really take it.
No.
Once people have downloaded those pictures, they're theirs,
And it gets to some of the dilemma. And Andy, if he was anything, he was a dilemma. He was ambivalent. He was ambiguous. You can't ever really pin him down. Looking at his brain, what we come up with is this incredible machine that is both creative and highly functional in an executive way that changed culture. The model that I work out of is a complex system model that goes from the brain to the mind, and that's an interactive thing, from the mind to culture. Minds make culture, or art rather, and art then informs culture. So you have a brain, mind, art, culture system. Andy moved up and down that scale with ease. He could be in any area of that and be stimulated and influence and see things that other people just didn't see.